Hello, and welcome to the Fearless Storyteller podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Freckleton. Have you ever noticed how fear stops us from creating and sharing our best work? Join the Fearless Storyteller as we explore the heart and soul of writing stories, songs, and scripts that sell with the people who write them. Each guest has their own unique hero's journey and insights into the intersections between limiting beliefs and success. Today's episode of The Fearless Storyteller is a special impromptu celebration of creating writing habits, and we're going to get really specific and laser focused in talking with our guest, Ira Heinichen, who's a writer, podcaster, editor, and screenwriter, specifically about tools and ideas and mentality and approaches for finding the resolve to write, despite anxiety or doubt or imposter syndrome. We're going to get into creating a writing routine, habit stacking, managing our time, energy, and capacity, or just dealing with our limited capacity and still being able to have a daily writing habit. And stay tuned for the end. I'm going to give you a special offer as well. Hope you enjoy. Hey, Ira. How you doing, man?
Hello, Ethan. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm great. Learn how to improvise in the moment. This was going to be a Facebook Live.
Yes, we do. But here we are on audio.
Here we are on audio only. On
audio
Zoom.
is my preferred medium anyway.
Zoom.us.
That's right. Brought to you by Zoom.
So, Ira, you're an author, you're a podcaster, you're a creative type.
Yes.
You've written screenplays, and you really like to go deep inner nerd on this inner journey of yours, and I'm excited to talk with you.
Yes. To make an understatement, yes, I do. I've described it to my parents as the great obsession of life, I think.
Yeah. And for our stream benefit, is it all right if we shut down your video? My bandwidth. I'm going to stop it there, and there we go.
Totally fine.
Cool, man. So you have a podcast called Film School Podcast, and you've been...
Correct.
And it's super awesome. And you've been having these little side episodes where you talk about your own personal creative processes with your co-host.
Yes.
And, NaNoWriMo's coming up. There's a lot of people, including people who may be listening, who've been aware that there's a National Novel Writing Month and have maybe even started on it before, but never finished a project.
Yes.
Does that sound relatable to you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I haven't done Nano. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words about the podcast. I'm absolutely chuffed, as the English would say, to have you among our audience. Number two, NaNoWriMo. I have not actually done NaNoWriMo specifically myself before, but I am a big believer in its tenets and philosophy. Of chipping away and getting work done. Because at the end of the day, something doesn't really exist unless it's done, unless you finish it, right?
Right.
And number three, the struggle to finish work is constant. I have finished work, and I have projects that I've never finished.
Right.
And I struggle with the fear of not finishing every day. So yes.
And it doesn't go away, right? Yeah.
And exactly. That's exactly kind of the point that I was driving at, which is, it's not one mountain that I have been able to scale and then just stand up there and look across the valley of my amazing accomplishments and be like, I did it. This is done. I have conquered this mountain. I never have to do this whole climbing thing again.
Right.
I definitely feel like I have to climb that mountain, not only with each project I work on, but every day.
So it sounds like you're continually climbing. And so what have you learned about that process, about yourself, as far as starting and then continuing?
Yeah, it's, I've always been pretty good at starting projects. I know that I've heard a lot of advice over the course of my creative life that starting is the most important thing. And maybe it is for other people, but I've always been pretty good at starting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's to me, the thing that I focus the most on is finishing. And the way that I have learned that I finish something is by breaking it up into small, manageable pieces. So that I deal with a lot of anxiety. I would say the thing that holds me back the most, or that I struggle with the most, and have to manage the most in my creative life, is my anxiety. And one of the tools that I have found, one of the many, but one of the tools that I have found to manage that anxiety is breaking things up into a process, into little small bits and pieces, and then focusing on those small individual pieces and attacking those each day or each session or whatever it is. And it's been very helpful for me.
And do those goals, because, thinking in the context of a writing habit or a project habit, there's kind of two approaches, right? There's one, I set aside a certain time box every day, and whatever happens, versus I'm going to sit in this chair until I accomplish a specific little chunk of work.
Yeah, very well said. That resonates with me a lot, because I've actually done both. Concrete example of how I wrote my first book was I set myself a very small, simple goal of writing 3 pages each day. And I had a target for how long I wanted that book to be. And I made sure that I adjusted my font size and my formatting so that I knew that each page represented a certain amount of words, and that I knew that once I got to around 300 pages, I was going to have a full book. And from there, once I had that figured out, I just focused on 3 pages a day.
Great.
And if I did that for 100 days, I'd have a book. And it was like realizing that, Ethan, kind of blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was like, oh my God, like I can write an entire book in 100 days. That's nothing. That's 3 months plus a little bit. Like even I can do that.
Even I can do that.
even I can do that, little old me with all of my issues and busy schedules and multiple jobs and all of that. Even I can do that.
But Ira, aren't even those first 3 pages hard? Or aren't they?
They can be. So that leads me to part 2, but they can be. For that first book, the answer to that question was no. And were there at times in the process where it was difficult to write those 3 pages? Yes. But I already had an outline for the book that I wanted to write, because it was going to be a script project. And I had developed that with a friend, although it was my idea, and the outline that I fleshed out was much more detailed, which is to say, it was a story. I chose that story not because I wanted it to be my magnum opus, but because it was very clear inside my head what I was going to write. And I wish I had been paying closer attention, getting myself to that point where the story was super clear, because that would have helped me for what I've been going through recently, which is the second book was very not clear to me, was very unclear. And I really struggled with the idea of just sitting down and writing 3 pages a day, because the story was not clear. I didn't know emotionally where I was going with the story. I had a really hard time connecting. There were a lot of other factors too that just really ramped up that anxiety that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I've had to try a different bag of tricks.
Okay.
To get through that. Something as simple as setting myself a page count or a word count each day hasn't been enough.
So what is?
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the other side of that spectrum, which is
Right.
blocking out time,
Right.
um, and not focusing on the word count or the page count. And I am proof positive that that is also completely valid,
Mm.
because that has been the only thing that has been working for me over the past several months. I'm finally turning a corner on the second book. And again, among many other things that I've used to manage my anxiety,
Mm.
um, the very helpful tool that I found has been just block out the time, Ira. Don't worry about how much work gets done in that time.
Right.
Just do the work, and the
Right.
pressure release that has taken off of my shoulders,
Mm.
that I was putting on my shoulders to when I was, using word counts, but the story just wasn't clear and working.
Yeah.
That pressure release has made all the difference.
Wow.
And I'm
Yeah.
starting to make progress, a lot of progress. I'm 130 pages in on this project now of good words.
That's exciting.
Um, so yeah, for me personally, both of those methods have proven, depending on the context and where I am at,
Mm.
to be very, very helpful and
Yeah.
useful.
So how much time, or conversely, how little time is enough?
Man, that's a very good question, because I think that's a very personal question. Um, when I was feeling very, very, very overwhelmed,
Mm.
um, I decided to strip things back, all the way
Mm.
to zero. And I focused on cultivating other things, addressing some other areas of my life that were not helping the writing. Things like going to therapy,
Mhm.
things like doubling down on my education,
Mm.
um, and asking for help from fellow storytellers and editors and that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, I've concretely scaled that up to the point where my goal is for Monday through Friday to work for 2 full writing sessions each day, which right now is 15 minutes of meditation and 30 minutes of writing. So
Ah.
42 sessions of 45 minutes. And I'm really comfortable, or getting comfortable in that space right now. And I'm going to allow myself to feel that comfort for a little while before I push out and stretch that a little further.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I can get a crap ton done in just an hour worth of
Right.
keyboard time a
And
day.
so that's key. So what's happening during the meditation that's letting that 30 minutes be effective use of time for you?
Yeah, so that's another tool that I use to manage my anxiety. And that was introduced to me. Actually, I don't know when it was first introduced to me, but most recently, because I've meditated before writing sessions before. But this time around, and it's stuck,
Mm.
was my therapist and I were doing that before my therapy sessions. And I was just noticing the physical effect that it has on my body, as well as I can just feel, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a big
Mm.
time talker. I feel like my brain is
Yeah.
running oftentimes at a mile a minute.
Mm.
And meditation, I could just feel almost like it was a waveform, like feel the waveform change in my
Mm.
brain
Mm.
to just be slower, and more calm and more focused. And that is what I'm doing with meditation before my
That's
writing, is to get my brain into a point where it's slowing down.
that's exciting. And does it also help with, like, say, working a day job and being tired and not having energy and having low
100%.
capacity? So it helps you recharge some of that battery or capacity?
Yeah, it just slows everything down.
Mm.
And I actually know, I know that it's really working.
Mm.
Like, I'm going to have a really good writing session if I actually do find myself drifting off a bit.
Mm.
It's only 15 minutes of meditation, and the first probably 10 minutes of that, I'm hyped. So if I'm drifting off, it's really only probably for a couple minutes. I do guided meditation.
Cool.
Um,
Like a
that
recording
helps
or
me.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because it helps me drop down in and then helps me come back up out.
Right.
And if you were talking about tired or whatever, if I'm drifting during meditation, it's because I'm tired. But it also puts me in a place energy wise that is being tired, that is very conducive to creativity for me. At the very least, in small bursts. I'm not saying if I'm exhausted that I'm going to go try to write for 2 or 3 hours.
No.
That is a recipe for disaster.
No, but you're talking about 30 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of these little spurts that I've found to be very productive, being tired sometimes is not a bad thing. For me, at least. Because of that because of the energy state that I am most creative in, which is flow state. And the flow state for me is not a high energy. It's not a high energy anxious state.
Yeah.
It is much more grounded, much deeper, much lower, longer waveforms, brain waves.
Right. And does that correlate then to getting better words, or?
It 100% it does. Yes.
That's super exciting. It sounds like. And so you're making the sound achievable, Ira. Are there any other buts about this? Like
the but is that it's always going to be difficult to sit down for me. Maybe not always. But over the span of my life as a whole is what I mean by that. There are always going to be times, and it may be the rule for me rather than the exception, that it's going to be difficult to sit down and write. But what I have found with this new sort of protected bubble that I've created for myself and my writing is that I do crave and need it, and I do look forward to it, even if resistance is always going to be pushing back against me. That I've really come to value my writing time as this protected, magical, sacred alone time that I have to dive into my own world. And that's become really, really special to me. And that feels important in terms of me connecting with my work. Because it's also not just about writing the words, Ethan, as I found out. I've written this book that I've been working on, I've written twice. And it hasn't worked both those times. And that frustration of putting out words and doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing and still not having a product that I just knew was a mess because I never connected with it. Yeah. That was the only thing that has gotten me really to a point where I thought about quitting. That was very dark.
Yeah.
So I feel like the journey that I'm going on right now of refortifying my process to be something that is producing words I connect with is almost like the thing.
Cool.
For me to be focusing on.
That sounds huge. And I know we don't have a lot of time, so
we do. I'm so sorry. But thank you for fitting it in so quickly.
Okay. I just want to maybe link this. So we're talking about writing where there's a goal, and the goal is to create a product. And I don't think that everybody's going to connect with, for a variety of reasons, whether or not because not comfortable, don't have the craft, or it's just not the intention to make it a project. So that motivator may not be there. But you're talking about this protected bubble and and it being deeply meaningful in the space you're creating. And I heard you talk about this on your podcast, and I just wanted to invite this into the conversation. How you think about anchors or anchoring a habit or something you want to do and creating a space to do it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I realized that I didn't have a writing habit, particularly for my creative writing. I started a writing habit years ago with journaling that I have kept up now. It's going to be next week. In 6 days, it'll be 6 years.
Holy cow.
Of writing a journal blog entry
every day?
Every day. And I found so much value out of checking in with myself and my day and what I was doing, and just marking the time by doing a journal entry every day. And what has kept me going with that for as long as it has been the fact that it became a habit. And I had attached that habits, again, we're short on time, but I can't remember what the book is, but there's a book or a philosophy behind the structure of how we form habits.
Sure. There's a few. There's atomic and habit stacking and
yeah, exactly. And I think what I'm doing was essentially habit stacking, or the idea of that we have triggers in our life, right? We have triggers like things that we do every day that we have to do every day. Like we have to get up, or we have to go to sleep, or we have to, if we have a job, then we're doing a drive, or if not a drive, it's a commute. Like there are structures in our life that we can attach tasks that may otherwise be difficult to do. We can attach those tasks to those habits. And so I had attached going to sleep, my nighttime routine of taking the dogs out and brushing my teeth and, getting ready for bed. I'd attached writing a journal entry to that, to that routine, and it formed a habit because of that. And just very recently, I decided that I wanted a creative writing habit, because I find that the more time I spend away from my creative projects, the more time it takes me to drop into them and get good work done out of them. And so I was seeking to try and narrow that gap a bit by, if at least just for a few minutes, reaching out and engaging with my project creatively that I was working on. And so in addition to writing my blog entry now, I also have started doing 10 minutes, just 10 minutes of either brainstorming or writing new words or whatever with my creative project. And again, it is astounding to me how much work I can get done in that tiny amount of time.
Right.
So, and it works for me because I'm going to bed at that point. And again, my energy level is dropping. Things in my head are slowing down.
Yeah.
It's been a good time for me to attach that habit, to form that habit. And
so
it's been working really well.
Sounds like in all of these, really the only expectation is that you've linked it to something that you're always going to do, which is going to bed. Maybe it was brushing your teeth as a trigger or whatever it is. And there's no other expectations other than you're going to do it.
Exactly. Yes, that I'm going to just be there, and whatever I get done in those 10 minutes is what I get done.
Yeah.
And that's been bite-sized, and it's been working so far. It's been helpful so far.
That's great. Well, Ira, I know we're doing the time. It's been such a pleasure to connect, and I think there's a lot of good tidbits in there. And so
I hope so.
You're the author of Star Stuff and the host of of Film School and Two Guys, One Trek, my favorite title.
Yes. Yes, that's our Star Trek podcast.
Cool. And how do people...
my co-host by the way, his name is Josh McClenny. He's a filmmaker.
Awesome.
And a wonderful guy.
Cool. And how do we find you?
I'm at iraheineken.com. My name is pronounced like the beer, but not spelled like the beer. However, I also registered the near miss. So if you type in IRA and then spell out Heineken the beer, it will forward you to the right,
That's
right
fantastic.
website.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Great. All right, Ira. Well, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to your work day.
Thank you for having me, Ethan. I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ira. We attempted to get a Facebook Live going for your convenience, but fell short of that due to, shouldn't practice when you do it for the first time unless you're open to failing, and I did, but we had a very good conversation, and I'm happy to share it. I wanted to share some closing thoughts. One is just to reiterate, if you're going to do a writing challenge, I would invite you to decide ahead of time what feels more achievable. Is it having a little time box of time that you can keep sacred? 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is that feels right to you, that feels achievable, that like, oh my gosh, I can't do this for 30 days or forever. Or pick a word count. Maybe something that feels more achievable than time is saying, I'm going to write a minimum of 200 words a day, which is not a lot. I think the average writing speed for somebody who's not filtering or editing themselves is probably around 800 to 1200 words an hour. So 200 words, probably around 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I've written as many as 600 words in a 15-minute time span when I'm not thinking about it, not feeling the pressure, and just in that flow state that Ira talked about. And then just a note on deadlines and goals. How long does it take to write 300 words? I was thinking about this morning when I was going for a walk, and what I thought of was I've been a songwriter for a long time and developed my craft over the years and really dialed it down to I can write a song as fast as I need to. But it doesn't mean that I'm writing more songs or writing more often. In fact, what I find is that if I have an hour deadline to write a song, it takes me 1 hour to write a song. If I have a 4-hour window in my day to get a song written, I'm going to write 1 song in 4 hours. I'm not going to write 4 songs. And if I have a week to get the song done, a deadline just to get that first draft, it takes me a week to write that song. I'm just sharing, vulnerably. I'm not amping it up and overperforming. And this should say it a different way. The habit is tied to the deadline. So whatever that is for you, give yourself a time box or a goal. And whatever you pick, if you pick something that has you writing 300 words a week, that's what you're going to end up with. And if that feels good and that's a victory, that's good enough. But if you want to be writing 1,200 words a week, 1,500 words a week, maybe you need a daily goal, not a weekly goal. If you need to write 1,000 words in a day, if you're doing NaNoWriMo, the calculation to complete and win NaNoWriMo is 1,670 words a day. I completed the challenge once. I did it for the first time I wrote a novel. I didn't finish the novel in that time, but I did hit 50,000 words, which is the goal to win. You either finish your novel or finish 50,000 words. And it was fun. It was enjoyable, and getting to prove to myself that I can do it, that I can write 1,670 words a day, even when it looked like I was falling behind. It was motivating. But I had already found, leading up to that, tools for managing my time, my energy, my capacity to write, or just finding the willingness to write anyways, even if I'm tired, exhausted, I think my words are going to be crap, they're going to be awful, I don't even know what I'm going to be writing about, I don't know what the scene's about, just did it. And it was a lot of fun, it was fulfilling, and you don't have to make that your goal. Your goal can be whatever you want. You don't even have to do NaNoWriMo. You could have a 1-week challenge that every day I'm going to write 300 words, or every day I'm going to write for 15 minutes. You don't even have to make a product. You can create a habit, create something that feels good for yourself, because at the end of the day, that's why we're doing it. Whether we're writing professionally or just for ourselves, we're doing something that makes us feel good about ourselves, that makes us believe in ourselves. It gives us a sense of meaning and fulfillment and value. So, if you're listening to this, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit with this and sit with me and sit with Ira. And as my gift to you for listening to this, I want to invite you to join me for a success story breakthrough session to help you move forward so that you can start and finish your first writing project, whether it's for fun, creative play, or to turn it into something that maybe you're going to sell or pitch to somebody. So how does that sound? When you say yes, we'll spend 30 minutes working together to help you get a crystal clear idea about the one thing you can do right now that's going to help you gain and keep momentum. At the end of the session, we'll check in about whether continuing to work together could serve you. And I want you to know, sincerely, There's no pressure to continue with me. And I'm not even going to invite you to work with me unless I think I can really help you and you feel the same way. Does that sound good? Again, I'm offering you a free gift, 30 minutes of my time, to help you do that one thing that's going to get your writing habit started, that's going to help you find the resolve to write, whether it's starting tomorrow or the next day, this week, or for NaNoWriMo, whatever it is. Sound good? You can start now by emailing me, ethan@ethanfreckleton.com, which I'll post in the discussion and any episode notes. Again, ethan@ethanfreckleton.com. I'll also include a convenient booking link where you can just click and pick from my calendar and pick something that's mutually good for us. And we'll spend 30 minutes together where I'm just supporting you and giving you whatever you need, the space you need to find that one thing that's going to get you going. So, are you ready to take the next step and find the resolve to write? If so, this could be your moment to begin your success story. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of The Fearless Storyteller. As a reminder, any and all links can be found in the show notes. And if you're enjoying this podcast, will you please consider leaving a review? By doing so, you'll be helping new listeners discover the Fearless Storyteller podcast.